Hi guys, welcome back to Sasha K Creations. This part is where the fun begins, and we are gonna make the first and the second page. So we are gonna start with January. So we're gonna take the first two sheets in the 8x8, and then of course the first two sheets in the 12x12. Please keep in mind that this page was the first one I made, so I hadn't figured out all of the details yet. So it took me a little longer to make than the rest of the pages. The first thing you're going to do is cut off that white strip on top of each sheet. And this one is the design sheet, so we are going to call this side design A and this side design B. And this is the cut apart sheet, so we're going to call this cut apart A and cut apart B. And the same goes with the 12x12s. They are exactly the same, but just bigger. But of course, I'm gonna mention which size I use. So you're gonna take your design sheet from the 12x12, and you're gonna lay it on your cutter so the top is up, and you're gonna cut it at 8 inches. And we are gonna use this piece for fussy cutting, so I'm gonna put that here. And then you're gonna take the rest of your sheet and lay it on the cutter so that the left side is up. And you're gonna cut again at 8 inches. And we're gonna use this piece for the inside of the flap. Then you're gonna take your 12x12 cut apart sheet, and you're gonna start by cutting off the border strip. And then you're gonna cut out the brown square in the top right corner, but you are gonna be careful so you don't cut into the piece underneath that says January. And I'm just gonna turn this. So now I have the knife on the bottom, so I can cut underneath the square, like so. And I should have cut off the strip with the stems. That would have made this a little easier, but for some reason I chose to do it the hard way. But you're gonna cut off the other square and the piece right above it. And then you are gonna separate these two pieces. Then you're gonna cut off a piece from the 8x8 cut apart sheet. And we are gonna use the B side for this. But you're gonna cut it right next to the January card and the little blue square. And then you're gonna cut off the border strip. And you can just put that aside. And now you can cut off the tags. And then you're gonna cut right above the blue little sign that says January. And then cut off the words. And then you're gonna go to your pre-cut cardstock and find piece B, E, and F. And again, please keep in mind that when I made this first page, I hadn't figured out all of the details, but I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do. But this part might be a little messy, but I hope you can follow. You're gonna take the piece you cut out from the 12x12 design sheet, the one that should measure 8x8. And then we are gonna put together piece E and F from the cardstock. So you're gonna fold the F piece at the square lines. The two short flaps across from each other you are gonna fold in, and you can go over them with your bone folder to make the edges a little sharper. The last flap is going to be our hinge, so you can fold that either way. And then the E piece should fit on top of your F piece. So you're going to put a piece of score tape on each end. You can also just use your glue, but I'm going to use both on this one. If you use tape, remember to burnish. Make sure that your two short flaps are folded in when you are adding your glue. And then just keep the third one, the long one, out of the way. And now you can place your E piece on top with the tape facing down. And make sure that you don't go over the last score line. If your piece is a little too big, then you can let it stick out on the other side. And then we can just cut it off. Make sure to burnish and close your glue. Now I'm just going to cut a little bit of my E piece because it is sticking out. And it's really not that much, almost a tiny little string of paper. Now this is going to be a pocket, so we need to close it right next to the score line, right here. So get your glue and add a tiny strip of glue all the way down, as close to the score line as you can get without going over the score line. And then use your cloth to wipe away all of the excess glue. You don't want to push it into the pocket, you want to push it out of the pocket. We want it to be as deep as possible. And close your glue. Now your pocket flap is ready, and then you are going to take your B piece and fold it at the score lines. It can be tricky when there is two score lines and they are close to each other. I think the best way to do it is to fold one of them and then pull the paper so it automatically goes into the next one. And this piece is going to be the big flap on the page. And now you just need to cut a little piece of this scrap from the 12 by 12 design sheet. You're going to use the B side and you're going to cut 3 inches from the top. And this piece is going to be on the back of your pocket flap. And we're going to make another pocket with this one. And this is going to be on the front of the pocket flap. And again, find the big piece from the 12 by 12 design sheet and the 8 by 8 design sheet. And this pocket flap we made before, and the big flap. And the 2 squares from the 12 by 12 cut apart sheet. Now we are gonna ink the edges of everything. Now, if you want to ink the edges on your base cardstock as well, do that now. I did it after I put this page together, and it is not easy, so don't do that. It wasn't my plan to do it at first, but then in the middle of February, I decided to do it anyway, because I thought that it looked a little too clean. But you're going to take the design sheet from the 8x8, and then you are going to add your square tape on the B side, all around as close to the edge as possible, and then a few more strips across the paper. You're going to fill in the empty spaces with all of your glue, and then you're going to place your paper on the outside of the flap with the hinge down. And when you have it in the right place, go over with your cloth. And remember to close your glue. Be sure that you get all of those air bubbles out. And take off any excess glue. And just in case, flip it over and go over with your bone folder and burnish all over. Especially around the edge where the score tape is. Now we're going to make the inside of the big flap. So again, take your cut piece from the 12x12 design sheet and turn it around. Then we're going to cut a line on the right side of the paper. And that is where the hinge of the pocket flap is going to go through. So you're going to cut a line that starts and ends 7/8 from the edge. And the line itself should also be 7/8 from the edge of the paper. And remember to do this on the left side of your sheet, like so. And you can always cut it a little longer if your pocket flap has trouble going through. When you have it in the right place, you can flip it over and add some glue under the hinge flap. And you can go over with your bone folder and make sure that there's no air bubbles. And then we can decorate the pockets. So you're going to grab this piece that says January. And you're going to glue that onto the front of the pocket flap. Like so. And wipe off the excess glue with the cloth. And close your glue. And then we're going to add a magnet on the back of this piece. So you're going to find the middle and that is where you're gonna want to place your magnet. Find your G piece in the cardstock pile, and that is gonna be the little pockets on the inside of the pocket flap. And remember to ink the edges on that as well. Start with the brown piece and glue it down. Like so. And just go over it with your cloth. Now take your G piece and add a tiny strip of glue as close to the edge as possible on 3 edges. And place it right under the brown piece. Go in with your cloth again and wipe from the center and out so you don't get glue into your pocket. And close your glue. Then take a second magnet and put it on top of your paper so it can find the magnet underneath. Add a little piece of squirt tape. Take off the anti-stick and just close your pocket flap. And then the magnet should stick to the pocket. And then you're gonna take this piece of paper and cover the back with glue. Place it over your magnet, leaving just a little bit of the cardstock above the paper. Now go in with your cloth again and carefully press down the paper on top of the magnet. And close your glue. And now this is actually done. So you can glue it onto the inside of the big flap, like so. The hinge flap should be on top. Take your tape and go all around the edge with the tape, and also add some strips across the paper and fill in the rest with glue. Now the flap is almost done and we can glue it into the book. So you're gonna put some square tape on the hinge flap and be sure to put it on the side without the pocket flap. Then you're gonna take your H, I, and J piece from the cardstock. And you're also gonna take this piece that we cut out from the 8x8 cut apart sheet and this border from the 12x12 cut apart sheet and this piece from the B side of the 12x12 design sheet. Cut the border trim down to 8 inches. I am just using the other piece of paper for measuring. You're gonna take the H piece and the little strip from the 8x8 cut apart sheet, and then we are gonna turn it into an 8x8 sheet. And then you're gonna have the eye piece on top of that, creating a pocket with the little border piece underneath the punched out part. And then the J piece on top of that, creating another pocket. And then the last piece of paper on top of that. But first we are gonna ink the edges on all of the paper again. If you want to see how I inked the regular cardstock, then please go to the next part of the tutorial and watch how I did it in March. But of course, if you don't like the look of the inked cardstock, then of course you don't have to do it. If you like the clean look better, you're gonna take the H piece and the little blue strip from the 8x8 cut apart. You want the blue piece on top, and I'm just using my mat to measure, but you can also use a ruler. You want to turn these two pieces into one big piece that measures 8x8. So you are gonna add a thin strip of glue or a strip of tape where the paper is supposed to overlap. Put the blue piece on top and make sure that it measures 8x8 before you burnish. Then you're gonna take your eyepiece and wrap it around to create a pocket and glue down the sides on the back. And then you're gonna glue on the border trim right under the punched out border. And then you're gonna take your J piece and wrap it around as well. But before you cover up your J piece, we are gonna add a magnet. Now you are gonna fold the J piece at the score lines on the sides and on the bottom. And you are gonna wrap that around the rest of the page. And then you're going to add your glue or your score tape. And you are going to burnish and repeat on all of the flaps. And like I said before, we are going to add a magnet before we glue down the last piece of paper. And I'm not measuring anything, I'm really just placing it where I want it. And then I'm just adding a piece of scored tape to make it stick. And now you can glue on the last piece of paper. Remember to burnish and be careful around the magnet so you don't tear the paper. Now you're gonna cut a little more into the 12 by 12 cut apart sheet. And you can start by cutting off this tag. And then cut off these bits right here. Cut off the strip that says January. And then just separate the 3 tags from the card. And separate the tags as well. Then take the last piece of your 12 by 12 design sheet. Now it's time for some fussy cutting. And if you don't like fussy cutting, you could probably find something else to make a little corner pocket. Or maybe you could do something completely different. That's up to you. So now I have fussy cut and inked the edges, and I've added just enough glue so that you can still get something behind here. And now I am gonna give it some glossy accents, and that is why I've put a piece of paper behind here so that I don't ruin anything if I spill. Now you are going to find this piece of chipboard, and we are going to use that for the magnet. And we already have a magnet underneath the paper, so we just need another one, and then we can add a little piece of square tape. And you can just place your chipboard where you think it looks best. I'm gonna place mine right here. And then you're gonna take your chipboard magnet and add a lot of glue. Then you're gonna place it on your paper back and press down the back over the magnet. Make sure to get all of those air bubbles out and close your glue. And now you could just cut out the magnetized chipboard from the paper. And now we just have to wait for this to be dry. And in the meantime, you are gonna find the piece that looks like this. It's from the 8x8 cut apart. And you're gonna cut off the square with the bird. And you could just put that away for now. And then you're gonna take the rest and cut that in half. And now you have two pieces for the closure. You just need to ink the edges. Remember all the white cardstock as well if you want it. And then you can add your glue or tape or whatever you like to use. And then you're gonna place it on the long part next to the square line. Like so. And then you can just press it down. And then we have this square piece, and we're gonna attach that at the end of the closure. And this piece was from the 12x12 cut apart. I'm using my media mat to make sure that the closure is in the center of the square. And go in with your bone folder. Then you're gonna find the D piece and put it behind the square. Add a little glue. And remember to go as close to the edge as you can. And carefully place it in the center of the D piece. This is why I prefer glue, so you can move it around a little. And once you have it in the right place, you're gonna take your bone folder and burnish. And maybe go in with a cloth and remove all of the excess glue. And now you can place it on top of your flap. And then you're gonna add your magnet. You're gonna place it right in the middle of your flap, and then it should stick to the one underneath. Add a small piece of score tape and then just close it up. And now your magnet should be in the middle of the closure. So you can add your second piece from the 12x12 cut apart sheet. Again, add your glue as close to the edge as possible. And place it in the middle of the closure Be sure that it's turned the right way and go in with your cloth. Now wipe from the center and out so you can remove all of the air bubbles and the excess glue. And now you can add the other small piece from the 8x8 cut apart sheet. Place it up against the square. And press on it with your cloth. And remember to close your glue. Now you just need to put this into the album. So you're gonna take a little square tape and place it as close to the edge as possible. And you don't want to go over the score line. Burnish. Peel off the anti-stick. Add some glue in between the pieces of square tape. And glue it in under the flap and make sure that it fits with the magnets. And burnish when you have it in the right place. And this is what you should have now. Take your pile of scraps and leftovers, and I just cut my finger. Find this long piece from the 12x12 cut apart sheet that says January. You are going to place that underneath the closure. But first you are going to ink the edges. Like so. And then you're going to find a piece from your scraps of the ivory cardstock. So add your glue and place it on the cardstock, leaving a little room around the edges. And if you, like me, found a piece that is a little too big, don't worry, we are just gonna cut off the excess part. Be sure that you've removed all of the air bubbles with your cloth. And close your glue. Now cut off the excess parts of the cardstock, leaving a little room around the edges. Then get your foam tape. And you could of course just add a long strip of tape from one end to another, but I don't think that it's necessary, so I'm just gonna cut off 3 small pieces. One in each end and one in the middle. And I'm using my sticky scissors for this. I only use these scissors if I have to cut tape or any other kinds of sticky things. I don't want to ruin my good scissors with this. So one piece in the middle and one in each end. And you're gonna peel off the anti-stick. And now you can place it between the bottom and the square on the closure. Like so. And now we're gonna get started on the things that are gonna go in the pockets. So you're gonna get one of the file folders you die cut and the 2 January cards, the die cut tag and a craft tag, and all of your leftover scraps from the sheets. And you're gonna start inking the edges on the tag. And you're gonna find this square piece from the 8x8 cut apart sheet and the rest of the border from the 12 by 12 sheet. And we are gonna make the border piece into a little pocket. So you're gonna ink the edges on that piece as well. And then you're gonna find your scoreboard. I am just using a mini one for this. Flip your border piece so it's upside down and put your die cut tag in the middle of the piece and line it up so that you have a score line on each side of the tag. And then you're gonna score the border piece on each side like so. And I'm giving it an extra just in case. And then you're gonna fold it at the score lines. And now you can put it on your tag. Place it at the bottom right above where it starts to curve. Turn it around and add a little bit of glue to the ends. There is not much to glue on, so this might be a little easier with tape. And we are gonna glue down this side of the tag anyway, so if you use tape and it shows a little, it doesn't matter. But if you use glue, you can use your bone folder to kind of force it down. And when it's stuck, you can pick it up and then you're gonna push it a little so that the tag and the pocket kind of bends away from each other. And then you're gonna add a tiny strip of glue on the bottom of the pocket. And then you can use your cloth and kind of wipe it down, removing all of the excess glue. Remember only to go down and not up so that we don't push the glue up. We only want to make sure that it's stuck on the bottom so nothing slips out. Now you can take the little square piece and ink the edges. And then you're just gonna add a little glue or tape, and then you can place it in the middle of the tag. Like this. And again, you can go over it with your cloth. And then you're gonna cut out a couple of these stamps. I ended up using 3, but this time I am only cutting off 2. Ink the edges on those as well. And then you can glue on the die cut tag on the craft tag. Place it on the craft tag. These are made to fit perfectly for each other. And when you have it on straight, you can start going with your bone folder or your cloth and wipe it down. I think that this looks pretty good. Now you can of course add a picture on the back or maybe die cut another piece. Now we are not going to do much more to the January cards other than cut off the corners with the 4mm corner punch. And I'm just going to remove all of the confetti I made. And then you are gonna ink the edges on both sides of each card. And you're also gonna ink the edges on the file folder, on the outside and on the inside. Now you're gonna find the border strip from the 8x8 cut apart sheet. And you are gonna cut it down so that it fits the file folder. And ink the edges. Add some glue or tape. And place it on the bottom of the file folder. And wipe out the air bubbles and excess glue. As you can see, my piece is a little longer than it should be, so I'm just gonna trim off the excess like so. Again, using my sticky scissors because there's glue underneath. And then you are gonna find this sticker right here. And I'm just gonna place it here, but first I'm inking the edges on this as well. And this is only so that it's not too white. Place it in the middle of the file folder. Cut out some more of the stamps. Ink the edges on all of them. And I just added another stamp in the tag pocket. There are 2 of each stamp and I already used 1 of each, so I have 1 of each left, and I am gonna choose the pine cone one and add that in the corner of the file folder. And I am placing it a little crooked. Now press it down with your cloth and remove all the excess glue and close your glue. And now you can put in your January cards. And if you want to, you can write on the back some notes, or maybe you could add some more stamping. Now from the 12x12 cut apart sheet, you should have this card and these 4 small tags. Now one of the tags is a little curvy, so I'm gonna use the 4mm corner punch on that one. And then this tag, I am gonna cut off the corners on the top. And I am for some reason using my paper trimmer, but I think that it's much easier just using your scissors. And I'm not gonna do anything to these 2 other than ink the edges, but I am gonna do that on all 4 of them. And also on the card. And then you can put all of these pieces into the pockets of your page. Now this piece is still loose and we are just gonna keep it like that for now. I'm not sure what to do with the cover yet, so maybe we are gonna put something through that needs to be covered up. Now the file folder with the January cards are gonna go in the flip pocket. And the small tags are gonna go in here or behind the magnet. Like so. Now the tag with the stamps are gonna go in this pocket. Now we are just gonna add some more details. You should have 2 stamps left from the cut apart sheet. And you can glue them in the corner of your closure. And remember to remove all the excess glue. And then you're gonna find this little piece. It's from the 12 by 12 cut apart sheet. It says let it snow. And I am just taking a little bit off of each side. Ink the edges. And I want this to pop a little, so I'm just gonna use some more of the foam tape. Cutting off 2 small pieces with my sticky scissors. Make sure that they are stuck, and then peel off the anti-stick and place it right above the bird next to the stamps. All of this is of course optional, you can place it wherever you want. We still have some scraps left over from the January sheets, so let's see if we can turn them into a photo mat. And I just found a piece in my cardstock scraps that I cut down. It measures 4 1/8 by 3 3/8. And then you're gonna take this piece with the tiny tags and cut off the 3 stars or whatever it is. And I am just moving some things around here, figuring out what I want to do. I definitely want to use this little piece that says Happy New Year, so I'm just going to cut that off. And now I have these 3 pieces that I want to use, so I am just going to cut them the same length. And these are all the B-sides from the cut apart sheets. And I am gonna cut a little more of these so they are the same size. Now I think that this looks pretty good. I am just gonna cut the corners with the corner punch. I'm using the 4mm. On all the other pages I made, I used score tape to put all of these pieces together before I glued them on, which I actually think is easier than what I'm doing now. You're gonna ink the edges and start with the cardstock. And now ink your scraps, but think of them as one piece. So you're only gonna ink the edge around the scraps and not the parts that are gonna be glued together. Take the piece that says Happy New Year's and use the corner punch again, the 4mm, and ink the edges. And now you have all of your scraps ready. When you are sure that you have all of your pieces in the right place, you can add your glue or tape and glue them on. When you are puzzling pieces together like this, you are gonna push them together so there's gonna be no gap. Then go over with your bone folder and you almost won't be able to feel that they are separate pieces. And if you have any excess glue, remove it with your cloth. Now glue down the Happy New Year piece and the photo mat is done. And we are gonna put it in the small pocket on the back side of the flip pocket. Now page 1 with January is almost done. We are just gonna add a little glossy accents to some of the details on the closure and on the January sign underneath. I'm only adding it onto the bird and the pine on the closure, and on the January piece on the bottom I am gonna add it to the flowers. If you want to add more or less, you of course do that. This is totally optional. Now that was page 1 with January. We are gonna put that away to dry, and while it dries we are gonna get started on the second page with February. So you're gonna take the 2 February sheets from the 12 by 12 collection, and you are also of course gonna take the 2 sheets from the 8 by 8 collection and carefully rip them out. And you are going to start by removing all of the excess part on top of each sheet. Then you're going to take the 12 by 12 design sheet and turn it upside down and cut it at 8 inches. And we're going to use this piece for fussy cutting. Now turn the rest of the sheet so that the right side is up and cut it again at 8 inches. Now take your 12 by 12 cut apart sheet and start by cutting off the border piece. Now turn the sheet so that the left side is up and cut right under the stamps. But you don't want to cut into the square piece, so be careful not to cut too far. Now flip it back so that the top of the sheet is up. And then cut in between the stamps and the square piece, just down to the bottom of the square. And now the stamps should be free. Then you're gonna turn the sheet upside down. And then you're basically just gonna cut the rest of the sheet apart piece by piece. Now I know this is a bit messy. I haven't yet figured out a way to organize all of these pieces. But if you keep all of these small pieces in one pile and the bigger pieces in another pile, then I think you're good to go. we are going to find these pieces, the 2 squares from the 12 by 12 cut apart sheet, and the long piece that says February. Now you're going to ink the edges on all 3 pieces. Then you are going to go to your cardstock and find a C and a D piece. And also a leftover scrap big enough for the February sign. And remember to ink the edges of your cardstock as well if you want to. Start by adding glue to the February sign. And then place it on the leftover piece, leaving a little bit of space around the sign. Wipe out all the air bubbles and the excess glue. And then take the square piece with the flower girl and add glue to the back side of that. Go as close to the edge as possible. And place it in the middle of your D piece. And wipe with your cloth. Now flip it around and add a little piece of square tape in the middle. Burnish and peel off the anti-stick. Now place a magnet on top of the square tape. You're going to take the C piece and put it under the D piece. And you want it to go 2 inches in the middle from the top. And then you should have 2 inches to the square lines. Add your glue or your tape. And as you can see, I am using my media mat to make sure that I place it right. And it is covering my magnet a little, so I am just gonna take it off and place it on top of the C piece. And then you're gonna take the other square and glue it onto the other side of the D piece. And I am gonna place mine upside down. Don't do that. You need to turn the closure before you glue on the piece so that the arm is facing down. That is how it's going to look like when it's open. And of course, you don't want to open it and have the image upside down. It's a small mistake, but you don't have to make it. Remember to remove all of the air bubbles with your cloth. And close your glue. Now we are going to cut off the excess cardstock from this piece. And you want to leave just a little bit of the white around the sign. And again, remember, if you want to ink the edges on the white cardstock, I was halfway through the February page before I decided to do it. And I promise you that it's so much easier to do it before you glue all the pieces together. And then you're gonna add your glossy accents to the flower girl on the closure. And also on all of the small flowers on the February sign. And then you're gonna find this piece from the 12 by 12 cut apart sheet. And then you have these two. One is from the 8 by 8 and one is from the 12 by 12. And I am gonna use the wrong one at first, but I will notice and switch them around. But you are gonna take the one you cut out from the 12 by 12 design sheet And then you're gonna take piece E, F, and G from the cardstock. And then we're gonna put together the flip pocket. Start by folding in the sides at the score line. And also the hinge, but remember to fold it back out so you don't accidentally glue it onto the E-piece. And then you're gonna add your glue or tape to one flap at the time. And then you can put on your E piece so that it lines up with the F piece underneath. The important thing is that it doesn't go over the score line, but if it sticks out, you could just cut off the excess part. And now you can add a little glue or tape on the other flap and press down the E piece. Remove any excess glue. And then you're gonna add a thin strip of glue to this edge right here to close up the pocket. And it's important that you don't use tape for this because tape doesn't dry, so if you try to put something into the pocket, it might stick to the bottom, and that is not what we want. So now you have your flip pocket, and we want this on the front. So we are gonna ink the edges, and remember to ink the edges on the pocket as well. And also the piece we cut out from the 12 by 12 design sheet, that is gonna be the background. And we want the pocket to go through the right side of the background like this. So we are gonna cut a line, and I cheated and drew mine on with a pencil first. But you want it to be 7/8 of an inch from the edge of the paper, and also 7/8 from the top and bottom. And then you're gonna ink the cut. And this can be a little tricky, especially at the ends. But try to get as much of it as you can. And then you can put in the hinge from the flip pocket. And when it's in the right place, you can flip it around and add your tape or glue underneath the hinge. And you can burnish with your bone folder on both sides. And as you can see, I already glued the card onto the front. And that was when I decided to ink all of the cardstock as well, because when I glued it on, I just think it looked way too clean. So I immediately stopped recording and went back and inked everything from the January page as well. You're gonna put a strip of score tape onto the cut just to close up the page. And this is what we have so far. Closure glue. And then we are gonna add a magnet to the back so the closure has something to grab onto. So you're gonna add a little piece of score tape in the middle, and then pretend your page is open and close it up, and then you will know where to place your closure. And you're gonna put a magnet behind the closure, and it's gonna stick to the tape. If you want to measure, you do that. If you are really good at just eyeballing, you do that. So now we can put this piece onto the flap, and we are just gonna ink the cardstock. You want to ink it on both sides and fold it at the square lines. and ink it on the lines as well. And then turn the flap the opposite way and ink the square lines on the inside as well. And now we can glue down the flap page. Remember that the flap opens down. You are gonna add your square tape as close to the edge as possible all the way around and go across it with a few strips. Remember to burnish all of the tape with your bone folder, and then you can peel off the anti-stick parts and add your glue in all of the spaces between the tape. And now you are carefully gonna place your page inside the flap. The glue does allow you to move it a little, so don't panic if it's not perfect at first. Then go in with your bone folder and burnish all of the page. Make sure that all of the tape is down and you get rid of all of those air bubbles. And close your glue. And now this side of the flap is done. Then we need to cover the other side, and we are going to use the 8x8 design sheet. So we are going to add some square tape all the way around as close to the edge as possible. And some strips across. Burnish with your bone folder. And peel off all of the anti-stick parts. Add your glue in all the spaces between the square tape. And place your sheet on top of the flap. And burnish with your bone folder. Get all of the air bubbles out and make sure it's on real good. And maybe go over with your cloth just to smooth it out even more. Now your pieces with glossy accents should be dry. And they are gonna go on top of the flap like this. So you are gonna find your foam tape. And you're gonna add 3 pieces onto the sign that says February. 1 in each end and 1 in the middle. And press on it a little to make sure that they are stuck. Then you're gonna peel off the anti-stick parts and place it in the middle of the page under the closure. And press it down. And then you are gonna find your paper trimmer and the 8x8 cardstock sheet. And you're gonna start by cutting off the border piece on the right side. And then you're gonna turn it upside down and cut off the part with the card and the square. And we are gonna need that part for all of the pockets. Then cut off the small tags at the bottom. And then cut right above the little sign that says February. And cut off the 2 small pieces with words. And we are gonna need this piece in a minute. But this piece is what we need right now. And we are gonna cut off the square. And we are gonna use that for later. But the piece we just cut off with the tag and a couple of stamps, we are gonna cut that in half. And that is luckily right where the tag and the stamps meet. But now we have these two small pieces and we are just gonna ink the edges. And then you are gonna cover up the arm of the closure. So just take off the closure for a minute and add your glue to the back side of the small pieces and place it up against the square part. You want them to touch, but that is another small mistake I made on this page. So I'm just gonna take it off and move it to where it should be. And use your bone folder to smooth out where the pieces meet. And maybe remove all of the excess glue. Now turn it around and glue on the other piece. Like so. And again, smooth out the seam with your bone folder. And close your glue. You're gonna find this piece from the 12 by 12 cut apart sheet with the stamps. And you're gonna cut off the words. And then you're gonna cut out the piece in the middle. It's probably best to do this at the bottom of your trimmer so you don't move your paper while cutting. And then you're gonna take the stamps and you are gonna cut off 2 stamps. Then you're gonna ink the edges of the stamps and the little word sign. And you are gonna take 1 stamp at a time and glue them on. And remember not to add too much glue like I just did if the stamps are sticking out. Then you of course only want to use glue on the parts that is gonna stick on the closure. Like so. You can add more glue if you need to, and you can wipe off the excess. And now you can glue on the other stamp. And again, remember not to add glue onto the part that is gonna stick out. And press it down and remove all of the excess glue. And close your glue. Find your foam tape again and cut off 2 small pieces. And put one in each end of the little sign. Peel off the anti-stick parts and place it where you want it. And we are just going to flip it back over for a second. Then you're going to take the piece that we cut off before. And you're going to take the G piece from the cardstock. And ink the edges on both pieces. Then you're going to find this piece from the 12 by 12 cut apart sheet. And we are going to cut a bit of the bottom. You're going to cut it at 2 3/4. And turn it around because we are going to use the B side. Ink the edges. And glue that piece onto the top of the inside of the flip pocket. like so, and burnish. Remove excess glue. And then you're going to make a little pocket, so you're going to take the G piece and glue it on the sides and on the bottom. Just a small strip as close to the edge as possible, and carefully lay it on the bottom. And remove excess glue and try not to push it further in towards the middle. Take a magnet and throw it on there. It should grab onto the one underneath. And then place a little piece of squirt tape on top of the magnet. Burnish and peel off the anti-stick. Close the flip pocket and the magnet should stick. Now you can glue on the piece that's gonna go on top of the pocket. Like so. And use your cloth to make sure that you get out all the air bubbles and remove excess glue. And close your glue. Then you're gonna find a file folder and the 2 February cards that we stamped together. And you can smooth down the inside of the file folder with your bone folder. And you're gonna ink the edges on both sides on all of it. Use the corner punch to punch off the corners on the February cards. I am using the 4mm punch. And then ink the edges on both sides of those as well. And then you're gonna find this border piece from the 8x8 cut apart sheet. And you're gonna cut it so it fits the file folder. And then you can ink the edges on that as well, all the way around. And then you're gonna find the stamps from the 12x12 cut apart sheet. And you are just gonna need one. Ink the edges on that as well. Then you're gonna find this sticker from the sticker sheets. And ink the edges. And you're gonna place that in the middle of the file folder. Like so. And then you're gonna glue on the border piece so it covers up just a little bit of the bottom. Place the glue as close to the edge as possible. And remember not to turn it upside down. Use your cloth to press it down and remove the excess glue. And then add some glue to your stamp. Whoops. And then place that in the top right corner. I am placing mine a little crooked, but if you want it straight, then you do that. And close your glue. And now you can put these into the pockets. Then you're gonna go to your cardstock and find piece H, I, and J. And then you're gonna take the piece that we cut off from the 8x8 cut apart sheet. We are gonna use the B side. And then the border strip from the 12x12 cut apart sheet. And the 4x8 piece that we cut off from the 12x12 design sheet, also the B side. And we're just gonna cut down the border strip to 8 inches. And this paper trimmer only measures up to 6 inches, so I'm just gonna borrow one of the 8-inch pieces. And then we are gonna ink the edges on everything. Remember to fold the J piece at the score lines, so you can ink on those as well. You don't need to ink the H piece because we are not going to be able to see that anyways. Fold the I piece at the score lines as well. And then ink the part that we punched out. I did it so that it kind of fades a little. Don't forget to clean off the oxide. I am just using a baby wipe. Then you're going to take the H piece and this piece and turn it into a whole sheet. You want it to measure 8x8. And I am using my media mat so I can see where to put the pieces together. Add a little glue to the edge of the H piece. And then place the other piece on top. And use your cloth to press it down and remove the excess glue. Then take the eyepiece and wrap that around. Make sure that you can see the H piece before gluing it on. It might not line up perfectly at the bottom, but that's okay. When you have it all where you want it, add some glue to the flaps of your eyepiece. And I am just checking again if it covers the H piece, just in case. And then glue on the other flap. And press it down. I am using my cloth. You can use your bone folder if you want, it doesn't matter. All of this is gonna be glued down anyway. Now you're gonna take the border strip and add some glue to the back as close to the edge as possible. And fill that in. Place it underneath the punched out border. You want to be able to see a little of the cardstock that hasn't been punched out. Go over it with your cloth. And then take your J piece and wrap that around. If it feels like it's a little too small, it's okay. We are gonna make it fit. I'm sorry about my cat. Add glue to one flap at a time. I think it's easiest to start with the sides. And press that down. Remove excess glue. And then add glue to the flap on the other side. And press that down. Go over with your cloth. And then add glue to the flap at the bottom. and press that down. Close your glue. Go over the edges with your bone folder and flatten it out a bit. Now we just need to add the last piece, but before we do that, we are gonna add a magnet. And you're gonna find this piece of chipboard. Add a piece of score tape on the back side of your chipboard, and then place your magnet on top of the score tape. Put another magnet on top of that, and then add another piece of score tape. Peel off the anti-stick and then place it where you want it to be. And now you can glue on the last piece of paper. Place it so you can still see a little of the cardstock on the top and bottom. Then press it down with your cloth and go over the edges and remove excess glue. Find your paperback and glue down the chipboard magnet piece. Flip over the back and use your cloth to press down the paper on the chipboard. Cut out the chipboard with your scissors. You can also use a craft knife if you think that is easier. Ink the edges. And then you are done with the chipboard magnet. And now we are gonna do some fussy cutting. I am cutting into the last piece of the 12 by 12 design sheet. This has two pieces of an envelope, and I am gonna try to put those together. And I'm gonna cover it up so you won't be able to see that it's two different pieces. I also want to save the big flower, so I'm gonna cut around the leaf. And for some reason my phone stopped recording while I was fussy cutting. But as you can see, I put these two pieces together to make one envelope, and then I cut out this flower. And then I used that to hide the seam. And I'll try to show you what I did if I can get my camera to focus. Okay, so I put the envelope together, and then I added the flower. I also added some more leaves, and then I I cut out this hugs and kisses sign so I could cover up the hole in the envelope from the big leaf. Sorry. I'm gonna put this in the corner like this, but first I'm of course gonna ink the edges. I don't know why my phone stops recording sometimes. I've tried it a couple of times now. Sometimes it makes a sound and sometimes it doesn't. I am checking every 10 to 15 minutes, so I'm sure that it's still recording. And now I just added a little glue to the bottom and on the right side, so it's gonna stick, but I can still put something behind. And then remove excess glue. And close your glue. Now add some glossy accents to the details in the fussy cut. And remember to put something behind so if you spill a little, it doesn't accidentally glue it all together. I usually put glossy accents to the most fragile parts. And of course the parts that I want to pop a little more. If you want to, you can add it on the whole thing. And if you don't want to use glossy accents at all, I recommend you maybe put some cardstock underneath the fussy cut and then cut it out again before you glue it on, or else the pocket won't last as long. Now you can put this away to dry. And while it's doing that, we are gonna make the tag to put in one of the pockets. You're gonna ink the edges on the die cut tag. And then you're gonna find this little square from the 8x8 cut apart sheet and ink the edges on that as well. And then you're gonna find the small piece you have left from the border that we cut out from the 12x12 cut apart sheet. Ink the edges. Add a small strip of glue at the bottom of the border, on the B side of course. You can't use squirt tape for this. Place it at the bottom of the die cut tag, right above the curved corners. Use your cloth to press it down and remove excess glue. Get your scoreboard and score the border up against the tag. Now it's a little easier to fold the sides under the tag. Add a little glue and then use your bone folder to press it down. It can be a little hard when the piece is so small. And do the same thing on the other side. And remember to wipe the glue off your bone folder. Now you can glue the die cut tag onto the craft tag. And remember to get the glue as close to the edge as possible. Now you can place it. And if you need to move it around a little, I think it's easiest to pick it up. And then you can move it with your thumbs. And then you're going to take the little square piece from the 8x8 and add some glue to the back. And place that above the little pocket that we just created. Press it down with your cloth and remove excess glue. And remember to close your glue. Then you're going to find the little strip with the last 3 stamps from the 12x12 cut apart sheet. And you are going to separate them. And then you're going to ink the edges on all 3 of them. And now you can just put them in the little pocket. And then we are done with the tag. Find the card and the small text from the 12x12 cut apart sheet. Take this one and cut off the 2 red corners. And separate the other 3. Now you're going to ink the edges, and the first one I just inked, I went back and cut the corners with the 4mm corner punch. I just forgot to do it before I started inking. And now those are done. Now we're gonna create a photo mat. So you're gonna find the piece from the 12x12 design sheet. And first you are gonna cut off the big flower just above the flower. And then we are gonna cut again right underneath the small flower. Maybe we can fussy cut that later. And then we are gonna cut it in half. I know it can be a little hard with a piece that small. And then you're going to take that and the piece from the 8x8 cardboard sheet with all the small tags. We are going to use the B side. And you're going to use a piece of cardstock from your scraps. I have no idea how much this measures. I'm just eyeballing. The easiest way to do this is to put together the paper you want to use and then find a piece of cardstock that is big enough to hold all that. I am just going to cut off a small piece here so the strips are the same length. And I'm just using the other strips for measuring. Arrange the strips the way you want them. And when you know which corners you are going to punch out, take your corner punch and use the 4mm punch to cut off the corners. Then take the strip from the 12x12 cardboard sheet with all the small signs on and cut off one of the pieces that says hugs and kisses. Punch off the corners with the 4mm punch. And then we're gonna ink the edges. And remember not to ink the parts that are gonna be put together. Punch the corners of the cardstock with the 4mm punch and ink those edges as well on both sides. And now we can glue down all of our pieces. In the next videos, I'm gonna show you a easier way to do this, where you tape all the pieces together at first and then cut off the corners and ink and find matching cardstock and all that stuff. It's much easier when you have one whole piece. Go over the seams with your bone folder to make sure that they are the same level. Glue down the last piece and do the same thing with the bone folder. And maybe wipe off any excess glue. Now you can add the little sign with hugs and kisses. I'm just eyeballing this. Remove any excess glue and close your glue. And now this is also done. Put all of the last pieces in a small bag. We might use them later. Now all the glossy accents should be dry. So now we can put it all into the album. And we are gonna start with the flap, and I'm just inking the small part that's gonna stick out. Then you're gonna find your score tape and you're gonna add it on this piece all the way around. Do not go over the score line, but go as close to it as you can. Then burnish with your bone folder. Get your album and peel off the anti-stick parts. Get your glue and fill in the space between the tape strips. And then carefully place the flap at the edge of the page. You want the first score line to be right next to the edge. And this is the good thing about using glue. You are able to adjust it if it's not perfect the first time. When it's where you want it to be, take your bone folder and burnish it down. And maybe grab something hard you can put underneath. I'm just using my mini scoreboard. This makes it easier to press it down without bending the pages. And this is an important step, so take your time and be sure you have everything. Then you're going to take the closure and you're going to add the square tape. Again, you want it to be right next to the square line and as close to the edge as possible. Burnish with your bone folder and peel off the anti-stick parts and fill in the space between the strips of tape with glue. Put the magnets together so you know where your closure should be. And fold the glued piece underneath the flap. And then close up the flap and make sure that you get it straight underneath. Lift up the flap and burnish. Again, I am putting my mini scoreboard under so I have something hard to burnish on. Now we just need the last piece of the page. Put your square tape as close to the edge as possible all the way around. And then add some strips across. Burnish with your bone folder and make sure you get all the strips. Now you can peel off the anti-stick parts. And once you have your album ready, you can fill in all the empty spaces with glue. And carefully place the piece in the center of your page. Burnish with your bone folder and be sure you put something on top of the fussy cut pocket so you don't accidentally ruin it. And close your glue. Everything still works, so now you can add your tags and your cards and the chipboard magnet. I'm gonna put the 2 mini cards in the pocket and the 2 tags under the magnet. And the big card and the big tag I am gonna put in the pockets behind here. And that's it. That was the February page. In the next video we are gonna make the March and April. If you have any questions, please comment below. Thank you for watching.